The wind cut through the streets of Chicago like a knife that November evening. Elena Rodriguez pulled her thin jacket tighter around her body, but it did little to stop the cold. She had been standing outside Romano's Italian restaurant for almost 2 hours now, watching well-dressed people come and go, laughing and chatting about their meals. Her daughter, little Mia, sat on a nearby bench doing her homework under the streetlight. The girl was only 7 years old, but she had learned not to complain. She had learned a lot of things lately that no child should have to learn. Things like why they couldn't afford dinner sometimes, why they had to leave their apartment, why Mommy cried in the bathroom when she thought Mia was asleep. Elena watched another couple exit the restaurant, the woman carrying a fancy shopping bag, the man checking his expensive watch. She took a deep breath and stepped forward. "Excuse me," she said quietly. "Do you have any leftovers you're not taking home?" The couple looked at her for a brief second, then quickly walked past as if she hadn't spoken at all. Elena felt her cheeks burn with shame. This was the 15th person she had asked tonight. Or was it the 16th? She had lost count. 3 months ago, Elena had a job. It wasn't glamorous, but it was steady work at a textile factory on the south side. She had worked there for 5 years, showing up early every single day, never missing a shift unless Mia was sick. The pay was enough to cover their small apartment, food, and occasionally a new toy for Mia, or a movie on the weekend. Then one Tuesday morning, the manager called everyone to the factory floor. Elena remembered the look on his face, how he couldn't quite meet anyone's eyes. The company was moving operations to another country. Everyone would lose their jobs in 30 days. They were sorry. There would be a small severance package. Elena had used that severance to pay rent and bills, thinking she would find another job quickly. She had always been a hard worker. She had references. She even had 2 years of college before her mother got sick and she had to drop out to take care of her. But week after week, the rejection emails piled up. Overqualified for some positions, underqualified for others. Not enough recent experience. Position already filled. We'll keep your resume on file. Thank you for your interest. Her savings ran out. Then the severance money was gone. The rent came due and Elena could only pay half. The landlord, a man who had never smiled in the 3 years she had lived there, gave her 1 week to pay the rest or get out. That was when Elena started doing something she never imagined she would do. She started asking strangers for help. At first, she tried asking for money directly. "Excuse me, I'm trying to feed my daughter. Can you spare a few dollars?" But people either ignored her or told her to get a job as if she hadn't tried. As if she wanted to be standing on a cold street corner begging. Then one night she changed her approach. Instead of asking for money, she asked for something simpler. Something people were already throwing away. Their leftovers. It was less threatening somehow. People who would never hand her cash sometimes said yes to giving her their takeout boxes. Half a burger here, some pasta there. Once, a kind woman gave her an entire untouched salad because she had ordered too much. Elena would take whatever she got back to Mia, and they would share it. Sometimes it was enough for both of them. Sometimes Elena would lie and say she had already eaten so Mia could have it all. A mother's hunger is easier to bear than watching your child go without. Tonight was colder than usual, and Elena's feet ached from standing. She had been wearing the same pair of shoes for 2 years, and the soles were wearing thin. She could feel every crack in the sidewalk. "Mommy, I finished my math," Mia called from the bench, holding up her notebook. "That's wonderful, baby," Elena said, forcing a smile. "Just a little longer, okay?" Mia nodded and went back to her book. She was reading something from the library, a story about a girl who lived in a magical castle. Elena's heart broke a little more. Her daughter deserved magical castles, not cold benches outside restaurants. Another group of people came out, but they were already getting into their car. Elena didn't bother approaching. She had learned to read body language. Some people might help. Others definitely wouldn't. You could tell by the way they held themselves, the way they avoided eye contact. The dinner rush was ending. Soon the restaurant would close and Elena would have to try somewhere else or give up for the night. She had $3 in her pocket, enough for a small bag of rice from the corner store if nothing else worked out. Then she saw him, an older gentleman, maybe in his 60s, walking out alone. He wore a dark suit that looked expensive even from a distance. His hair was gray but well-groomed. He carried a leather briefcase in one hand and a takeout bag in the other. The bag looked full. Elena hesitated. Rich people were often the hardest to approach. They lived in a different world, one where problems like hers didn't exist. But that bag looked like it contained real food. Maybe enough for Mia to have a proper meal. She walked toward him, her heart pounding. The shame never got easier. Every time she had to do this, it felt like swallowing glass. "Excuse me, sir," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. The man stopped and turned toward her. He had kind eyes, she noticed. "Tired but kind. May I have your leftovers?" Elena asked, unable to meet his gaze. "Please. I have a daughter." There was a moment of silence that felt like it lasted forever. Elena prepared herself for rejection, for him to walk away like so many others had. She had her dignity speech ready in her head. "I'm not lazy. I'm not on drugs. I'm just a mother trying to feed her child." But she didn't get to say any of that. The man didn't walk away. Instead, he stepped closer, and when Elena finally looked up at him, she saw something unexpected in his expression. Not pity, not disgust, something else entirely. He was staring at her eyes, really looking at her. Not through her like she was invisible, not past her like she was an inconvenience. He was seeing her, actually seeing her as a human being. "Wait here," he said quietly. "Please, just wait here for a moment." Before Elena could respond, he turned and walked back into the restaurant, taking the takeout bag with him. Elena's stomach sank. Maybe he had gone to complain to the manager. Maybe he was calling the police. She had heard stories about people getting arrested for panhandling, though technically asking for food wasn't the same thing. "Should we go, Mommy?" Mia asked, sensing her mother's anxiety. Just one more minute, baby," Elena said, though she wasn't sure why they were waiting. 5 minutes passed, then 10. Elena was about to give up and leave when the restaurant door opened again. The man emerged, but this time he wasn't carrying a small takeout bag. He was carrying 2 large bags, the kind the restaurant used for big orders. Steam rose from them in the cold air. Elena could smell garlic bread and tomato sauce and something sweet like chocolate cake. The man walked directly to Elena and held out the bags. "These aren't leftovers," he said. "I just ordered them fresh. There's pasta, salad, bread, and dessert. Enough for you and your daughter." Elena stood frozen, unable to process what was happening. I can't. I don't have money to pay you back." "I'm not asking you to pay me back," the man said gently. He looked past Elena to where Mia sat on the bench, still holding her library book. "Your daughter looks cold. Let's at least get some hot food into both of you." Tears began streaming down Elena's face before she could stop them. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you so much. You have no idea what this means." The man handed her the bags, and their weight surprised her. Real food. Hot food. Probably more food than she and Mia had eaten in the past week combined. "There's also hot chocolate for your daughter," he added. "I remember my daughter loved hot chocolate at that age." Elena wanted to say more, to explain her situation, to make him understand that she wasn't always like this, that she used to have a job and an apartment and a normal life. But the words caught in her throat. The man started to turn away, and Elena thought that was the end of it. A beautiful moment of kindness from a stranger, something she would remember forever. But then he stopped and looked back at her. "What's your name?" he asked Elena, she managed to say. "Elena Rodriguez." He studied her face for another long moment, those same kind but tired eyes seeming to see something in her that she had almost forgotten was there. "I'm Vincent Chen," he said. "And I wonder, Elena, if you might have time to talk for a few minutes. I'd like to hear your story." Elena couldn't understand why this stranger wanted to hear her story. People didn't usually care about the details. They either helped or they didn't. They gave money or food or they walked away, but they didn't ask questions. They didn't want to know the person behind the request. Yet here was Vincent Chen, this well-dressed businessman, gesturing toward the bench where Mia sat. "Would you mind?" he asked. "I'd like to sit and talk while your daughter eats, unless you'd rather I leave you alone." Elena glanced at Mia, who was watching them with curious eyes. The bags of food felt heavy in her hands, and she could feel the warmth through the paper. Her stomach growled loudly enough that she worried Vincent might have heard it. "Okay," she said quietly. "We can talk." They walked over to the bench. Mia immediately perked up when she saw the bags, her eyes growing wide. Elena set the food down and opened the containers. The smell made her dizzy. Real pasta with marinara sauce, a Caesar salad, fresh garlic bread that was still warm, And yes, there was hot chocolate for Mia, along with what looked like tiramisu for dessert. Go ahead, baby, Elena said to Mia. Eat. Mia didn't need to be told twice. She grabbed a piece of garlic bread and bit into it, closing her eyes as she chewed. The expression on her daughter's face nearly broke Elena's heart all over again. No child should be this happy about basic food. Vincent sat down on the other end of the bench, keeping a respectful distance. He didn't stare at them while they ate, which Elena appreciated. Instead, he looked out at the street, giving them space. You don't have to rush, he said. Take your time. Elena took a piece of pasta and ate slowly, trying not to cry. She couldn't remember the last time she had tasted something this good. Real restaurant food, not the cheap ramen or day-old bread she had been surviving on. Every bite felt like a small miracle. After a few minutes, when the edge of her hunger had dulled, Vincent spoke again. How long have you been on the streets? We're not exactly on the streets, Elena said, though the words felt hollow even to her. We've been staying at a shelter for the past 2 weeks. Before that, we were in our apartment until we couldn't be anymore. What happened? Vincent asked. There was no judgment in his voice, just genuine curiosity, so Elena told him. Once she started talking, the words poured out like water from a broken dam. She told him about the factory closing, about sending out dozens of job applications every week and hearing nothing back, about the landlord who showed no mercy, about swallowing her pride and asking her few friends for help until she had asked too many times, and they stopped answering her calls. She told him about the shelter, how they had to be out by 7 in the morning and couldn't return until 5 in the evening, how she spent those hours in the public library with Mia, using the computers there to apply for more jobs, to search for any opportunity. How the library became their second home because it was warm and safe and no one asked them to leave. I had a good job, Elena said, her voice shaking slightly. For 5 years I worked hard. I was never late. I did everything right. But it didn't matter. When the company decided to move, none of that mattered. Vincent listened without interrupting. He didn't offer the usual platitudes that Elena had heard before. No, everything happens for a reason, or it'll get better soon. He just listened, and somehow that meant more than any comforting words could have. What did you do before the factory? He asked. I was in college, Elena said. I was studying business administration. I wanted to run my own company someday. Something small, maybe a catering business or event planning. I was good with numbers, good with organizing things. But my mom got cancer during my second year, and I had to drop out to take care of her. Did she recover? Elena shook her head. She passed away 3 years later. By then I had Mia and her father. She trailed off, not wanting to go into that particular painful story. He's not in the picture. Vincent finished gently. No. He left when I was 6 months pregnant, said he wasn't ready to be a father. Elena looked at Mia, who was happily eating pasta now. His loss. She's the best thing that ever happened to me. Vincent smiled at that. I can see that. She seems like a bright kid, she is. She's so smart, always reading, always asking questions. She wants to be a scientist when she grows up, studies the stars. Elena's voice filled with pride despite everything. Even now, even with everything that's happened, she keeps studying. She doesn't complain. Not once has she asked why this is happening to us. There was a long pause. The street had grown quieter as the evening wore on. A few cars passed by, their headlights cutting through the darkness. Can I see your resume? Vincent asked suddenly. Elena blinked, surprised. What, your resume? You said you've been applying for jobs. Do you have a copy? Yes, I have it on my phone. But the battery is almost dead. I have to save it for emergencies. Elena felt foolish admitting this, but it was the truth. She couldn't afford to charge her phone anywhere except at the library or the shelter, and she had to ration the battery carefully. Vincent reached into his briefcase and pulled out a portable charger. Here, charge it enough to show me. Elena hesitated, then accepted the charger and plugged in her phone. While it charged, Vincent asked more questions. Where had she applied? What kind of work was she looking for? What were her skills? With each answer, Elena felt a strange sensation growing in her chest. Hope, maybe, or something like it. This man was actually interested. He was asking the kinds of questions that interviewers should have asked but never did. When her phone had enough charge, Elena pulled up her resume and handed it to Vincent. She watched nervously as he read through it, his expression neutral. The resume wasn't fancy. She had made it herself using a free template from the library computer, but it was honest and accurate, listing her factory work, her computer skills, her unfinished college education. "You're good with Excel?" Vincent asked, pointing at one line. "Yes, I taught myself. I used to help manage inventory at the factory, tracking shipments and supplies. I liked making everything line up perfectly in the spreadsheets." "And you have experience with customer service?" "I worked retail all through high school and my first year of college. I'm good with people usually. I mean, when I'm not..." She gestured vaguely at herself, at her worn-out appearance. Vincent looked up from the phone, and once again, Elena felt that penetrating gaze. He was looking at her eyes, studying them in a way that made her self-conscious. "Why are you staring at me?" she finally asked. Vincent was quiet for a moment. Then he said something Elena didn't expect. "You remind me of someone. My mother, actually. A long time ago." "Your mother?" "When I was about your daughter's age, maybe a bit younger. My father left us. Just walked out one day and never came back. My mother worked 3 jobs to keep us fed and in our apartment. I remember watching her come home exhausted every night, her eyes so tired. But there was something else in those eyes too. A determination, a refusal to give up even when everything was falling apart." Elena didn't know what to say. Vincent Chen, in his expensive suit and polished shoes, had lived through something similar to what she was experiencing now. It seemed impossible, yet the way he spoke, she knew it was true. "She must have been a strong woman," Elena said softly. "She is. She's retired now, living in a nice house I was able to buy her once my business took off. But I never forgot those years. I never forgot what it felt like to be hungry, to be afraid, to watch your parent do everything right and still struggle." He handed the phone back to Elena. "I have a question for you, and I want you to think carefully before you answer." Elena's heart began to race. "Okay. If someone gave you a real chance, not charity but a genuine opportunity to work and support yourself, would you take it?" "Of course," Elena said immediately. "I've been begging for that chance for 3 months. Even if it meant starting from the bottom? Even if the pay wasn't great at first? Even if people judged you for how you got the job?" "I don't care about any of that," Elena said firmly. "I just want to work. I want to earn my own way. I want my daughter to see that her mother can provide for her without having to ask strangers for leftovers." Her voice broke slightly on the last word. Vincent nodded slowly, as if he had made a decision. "I own a real estate development company, Chen Properties. Have you heard of it?" Elena shook her head. She hadn't paid much attention to business news lately. "We're a mid-sized firm, about 70 employees. We develop commercial and residential properties throughout the city. Last month, my office manager quit without notice. Since then, things have been chaotic. Files are disorganized, scheduling is a mess, and my secretary is overwhelmed trying to do 2 jobs." Elena's pulse quickened, but she was afraid to hope. "That sounds difficult." "It is. I need someone who's organized, detail-oriented, and not afraid of hard work. Someone who can learn quickly and who actually cares about doing a good job." He paused. "Someone like you, perhaps." Elena stared at him. Are you offering me a job?" "I'm offering you a trial period," Vincent corrected. 30 days. You'll work as an administrative assistant, helping with filing, scheduling, phones, basic office tasks. The pay is $40,000 a year to start, which breaks down to about $19 an hour. Not a fortune, but enough to get you back on your feet. $40,000. Elena's mind reeled. That was more than she had made at the factory. That was enough for an apartment, food, clothes for Mia, maybe even saving for emergencies. "If you do well during the trial period," Vincent continued, "the job becomes permanent with full benefits. Health insurance, dental, paid time off. A normal job." "Why?" Elena asked, her voice barely a whisper. "Why would you do this? You don't know me." "I could be lying about everything." Vincent smiled slightly. "You're not lying. I can see it in your eyes. The same thing I saw in my mother's eyes all those years ago. You're not looking for a handout. You're not trying to game the system. You're just a person who had bad luck and needs a break." He paused. "Besides, I'm not a saint. I need someone who will appreciate this opportunity and work hard because of it. I think you're that person." Elena felt tears streaming down her face again. Mia looked up from her pasta considere. And Mommy, why are you crying? Happy tears, baby, Elena managed to say. These are happy tears. She looked back at Vincent. When do I start? Monday morning, 8 o'clock. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a business card. This is the address. Dress code is business casual. I'm assuming you'll need some time to prepare. Elena thought about her limited wardrobe. She had one pair of decent pants and 2 blouses that weren't too worn. It would have to be enough. I'll be there, she promised. I won't let you down. Vincent stood up from the bench. Before he left, he reached into his wallet and pulled out several bills. Consider this an advance on your first paycheck. Get yourself and Mia whatever you need. Clothes, supplies, whatever. Elena looked at the money in his hand. It was at least $300. Maybe more. I can't. Yes, you can, Vincent said firmly. You're going to be my employee starting Monday. This is just helping you prepare for work. That's all. Elena took the money with shaking hands, careful to preserve whatever dignity she had left. Thank you, she whispered. I don't know how to thank you enough. Vincent smiled, and for the first time that evening, Elena saw that his tired eyes had a warmth to them. Just show up Monday and prove me right about you. That's all the thanks I need. He turned to leave, then stopped and looked back one more time. Those eyes of yours, he said. Don't lose what's in them. That determination, that dignity, you're going to need both in the days ahead. And then he was gone, disappearing down the street into the night, leaving Elena and Mia alone on the bench with bags of food, $300, and something Elena hadn't felt in months. Hope Monday morning arrived faster than Elena expected. She had spent the entire weekend preparing, using Vincent's money carefully. A trip to a thrift store yielded 2 more pairs of pants, 3 blouses, and a simple black blazer that made her look almost professional. She bought Mia new shoes, the ones her daughter had needed for months. The rest went to necessities, bus passes, a notebook for work, and some basic groceries. Sunday night, Elena barely slept. She lay awake in her narrow shelter bed, listening to Mia breathe softly beside her, replaying the conversation with Vincent Chen over and over. Part of her still couldn't believe it was real. Another part worried she would somehow mess it up, that she would show up Monday morning and discover it had all been some kind of mistake or cruel joke. But Monday morning came, and the business card was still in her pocket, the address real and solid. Elena got up at 5, showered in the shelter's bathroom, and dressed in her best outfit. She looked at herself in the mirror and barely recognized the woman staring back. Clean, put together, almost normal. You look pretty, Mommy, Mia said, rubbing sleep from her eyes. Thank you, baby. You're going to go to the after-school program today, remember? I'll pick you up at 6. The shelter had helped Elena arrange childcare through a community program. It wasn't perfect, but it meant Mia would be safe and supervised while Elena worked. One problem solved, 1,000 more to go. The bus ride to Chen Properties took 45 minutes. Elena arrived 15 minutes early, standing outside the sleek glass building in the financial district. It was the kind of place she had walked past 100 times without really seeing it, assuming it was a world that had nothing to do with her. Now she was supposed to walk through those doors and belong there. Her hands were shaking as she pushed through the entrance. The lobby was all marble floors and modern art. A security guard sat at a desk eyeing her approach. Can I help you? He asked, his tone polite but distant. I'm Elena Rodriguez. I'm here to see Mr. Chen. I'm starting work today. The guard checked his computer, frowning slightly. I don't have you on the list. Elena's heart sank. She knew it. It had been too good to be true. Let me call up, the guard said, picking up his phone. Mr. Chen? There's an Elena Rodriguez here to see you. She says she's starting today. A pause. Yes, sir. I'll send her right up. The guard hung up and gave Elena a visitor badge. 15th floor. He's expecting you. Relief flooded through her. It was real. This was actually happening. The elevator ride felt like it took forever. Elena watched the numbers climb, trying to calm her racing heart. When the doors opened on the 15th floor, she stepped out into a hallway lined with offices. A reception desk sat at the center, where a young woman with perfect hair was typing on her computer. The woman looked up, and Elena caught the flash of surprise in her eyes. It was subtle, but Elena had gotten good at reading those micro-expressions. The slight widening of the eyes, the quick assessment from head to toe, The barely perceptible tightening of the lips. The receptionist was judging her, and Elena hadn't even said a word yet. "Can I help you?" The woman's voice was professional but cool. "I'm Elena Rodriguez. Mr. Chen asked me to start today." Another flash of surprise, less subtle this time. "He did? I wasn't informed about any new hires." "Well, he told me to be here at 8, Elena said, trying to keep her voice steady. The receptionist picked up her phone, her perfectly manicured nails clicking against the receiver. "Mr. Chen? There's someone here claiming you hired her, Elena Rodriguez." A pause. "Oh, I see. Yes, sir." She hung up and gave Elena a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "He'll be right out. You can wait here." Elena stood awkwardly by the desk, feeling the receptionist's gaze on her. She could imagine what the woman was thinking. Who was this nobody in her thrift store clothes? How did she get hired without anyone knowing? Vincent appeared a moment later, emerging from an office down the hall. "Elena, right on time. Come with me." Elena followed him, acutely aware of the receptionist watching them. Vincent led her to a small office near the back. It had a desk, a computer, filing cabinets, and a window that looked out over the city. "This will be your workspace," Vincent said. "It's not fancy, but it's functional." Elena stepped inside, touching the desk gently as if it might disappear. Her own office, her own desk, a window. "It's perfect," she whispered. "The computer login is already set up. Username is your first name, password is temporary 123. You'll change it after you log in the first time." Vincent handed her a folder. "This is the employee handbook, payroll forms, and some basic information about the company. My secretary, Catherine, will show you the filing system and explain your daily tasks." "Thank you," Elena said. "For all of this." Vincent studied her with those perceptive eyes again. "Don't thank me yet. This is going to be hard work. Catherine has been doing 2 jobs for the past month, and she's exhausted and irritable. Some of the other staff might be curious about how you got hired. Office politics can be tricky. I can handle it," Elena said with more confidence than she felt. "I believe you can." Vincent started to leave, then turned back. "One more thing. I told Catherine and the others that I met you through a professional networking event and was impressed by your resume. That's the official story. What you choose to tell people beyond that is up to you, but I'd suggest keeping it simple." Elena understood. He was protecting her, giving her a story that wouldn't invite questions or judgment. "A networking event. Got it. Good. Catherine will be here in a few minutes. Good luck, Elena." After he left, Elena sat down at her desk and took a deep breath. She had done it. She was here. Now came the hard part, proving she deserved to be. Catherine arrived 20 minutes later. She was a woman in her 50s with short gray hair and a permanently tired expression. She looked Elena up and down without bothering to hide her skepticism. "So you're the new girl," Catherine said. "Must be nice knowing the boss." "I don't really know him," Elena said carefully. "He just gave me a chance." Catherine set a stack of files on Elena's desk. "Well, chance or not, there's work to do. These files need to be reorganized alphabetically by client name. Once you finish that, there's a stack of receipts that need to be entered into the accounting system. Think you can handle that?" Elena looked at the mountain of files. There had to be at least 200.
"Yes, I can do that. We'll see," Catherine said.
"Lunch is at noon. You get 1 hour. Break room is down the hall. Don't be late getting back." For the rest of the morning, Elena worked. She organized files, learning the names of clients and properties. Chen Properties dealt with everything from small residential developments to major commercial buildings. The paperwork was extensive, but Elena's factory training had taught her to be systematic and thorough. She worked through her lunch hour, not wanting to seem lazy. When Catherine came by at 2 o'clock to check on her progress, Elena had finished all the files and had started on the receipts. Catherine raised her eyebrows. "You didn't take lunch?" "I wanted to get caught up," Elena said. "Well," Catherine seemed uncertain how to respond. "That's efficient." Over the next few days, Elena learned the rhythms of the office. She arrived early and stayed late. She volunteered for tasks that others avoided. She learned names, memorized procedures, and asked questions when she didn't understand something. But she also began to notice things, the way conversations would stop when she entered the break room, the whispers behind hands, the curious stares. On Wednesday, Elena overheard 2 women talking in the bathroom. She was in a stall and they didn't know she was there. "Did you hear how she got hired?" one woman said. Vincent just brought her in off the street. Didn't interview anyone else. That's weird, the other woman replied. What do you think is going on? Is she his mistress or something? Maybe. Or maybe she has something on him. It's just strange. Elena sat frozen in the stall, her face burning. When the women left, she stayed there for several minutes, trying to compose herself. This was what Vincent had warned her about. Office politics. People making assumptions, but she couldn't let it get to her. She had Mia to think about. She had a paycheck coming. She had a chance to rebuild her life. So Elena held her head high and kept working. When people whispered, she ignored them. When someone made a snide comment about special treatment, she bit her tongue and stayed professional. It wasn't easy. Some days it felt impossible. But giving up would mean going back to asking strangers for leftovers, and Elena would endure any amount of gossip before she let that happen to Mia again. By the end of the first week, Elena had reorganized the entire filing system. The old system had been chaotic, with files scattered across multiple cabinets with no clear logic. Elena created a new system, alphabetical by client, with subcategories for active projects, completed projects, and pending proposals. She made labels, color-coded folders, and created an index. When Catherine saw what Elena had done, her skeptical expression softened slightly. This is actually good, she admitted. I've been meaning to reorganize this mess for months but never had time. I'm glad it helps, Elena said. Where did you learn to do this? I managed inventory at my last job. I like making things organized. Elena didn't mention that her last job had been in a factory, not an office. She stuck to Vincent's story about networking events and let people fill in the blanks themselves. The second week was harder. Vincent gave Elena her first real project, coordinating schedules for a team of contractors working on a residential development. It meant juggling phone calls, emails, permits, inspections, and the demands of a dozen different people who all wanted things done their way. Elena made mistakes. She double-booked an inspector. She sent an email to the wrong contractor. She forgot to follow up on a permit application that delayed the project by 2 days. She was sure Vincent would fire her. But instead, he called her into his office and simply asked, "What did you learn?" Elena told him. She explained each mistake and what she would do differently next time. She didn't make excuses. She didn't blame anyone else. She just owned her errors and showed she understood how to fix them. Vincent nodded. Good. Now don't make those mistakes again, that was it. No yelling. No threats. Just an expectation that she would learn and improve, so she did. Elena started keeping a detailed notebook, writing down every procedure, every contact, every lesson learned from each mistake. She created checklists for complex tasks so nothing would slip through the cracks. She set reminders on her computer calendar for every deadline. By the third week, the mistakes decreased. Elena's confidence grew. She began to understand not just the tasks, but the flow of the business. She learned which contractors were reliable and which needed extra supervision. She figured out which clients were easy to work with and which required careful handling. Catherine began giving her more responsibility. Instead of just filing and data entry, Elena started handling client calls and drafting simple correspondence. She attended team meetings and took notes. She even began making suggestions about improving workflows. One afternoon, Catherine pulled Elena aside. I wasn't sure about you at first, she admitted. The way you got hired was unusual, and I thought maybe you were getting special treatment. But you've proven yourself. You work harder than anyone else here, and you actually care about doing things right. Elena felt emotion swelling in her chest. Thank you. That means a lot. You're welcome, and for what it's worth, I'm sorry if I was cold to you at first. I was just protective of this place. I understand, Elena said. And she did. She couldn't blame people for being suspicious. The circumstances were unusual. All she could do was show them through her work that she deserved to be there. As the 30-day trial period approached its end, Elena felt both hope and fear. She had worked as hard as she possibly could. She had learned quickly, made improvements, and earned Catherine's respect. But was it enough? Would Vincent decide to keep her, or had this just been a temporary kindness? The morning of the 30th day, Vincent's secretary called Elena into his office. Elena's hands were shaking as she knocked on the door. Come in, Vincent's voice called. Elena entered the spacious office. Vincent sat behind his desk looking over some papers. He gestured for her to sit down. 30 days, he said, looking up at her.
How do you think you've done?
Elena took a deep breath. I made mistakes at first, but I learned from them. I've reorganized the filing system, improved the scheduling process, and I think I've proven that I can handle the job. I know some people were skeptical about me, but I hope I've shown them that I'm here to work, not to take advantage. Vincent nodded slowly. Then he smiled. You've exceeded my expectations, Elena. The job is yours, permanently, with a raise to $45,000 a year and full benefits starting immediately. Elena felt tears spring to her eyes. Thank you. Thank you so much. You've earned it, Vincent said. You took a chance I gave you and turned it into something real. That takes courage and dedication. I'm proud of you. Those words hit Elena harder than anything else. Proud of her. When was the last time someone had said that? When was the last time she had been proud of herself? There's something else, Vincent continued. I want to tell you why I hired you that night. Why your eyes affected me so strongly. Elena waited, curious. When I was 7 years old, Vincent began, my father left. My mother worked 3 jobs to keep us safe and housed. I remember one night she came home from her shift at a diner, exhausted. She sat at our kitchen table and started crying. I was young, but I could see in her eyes something I've never forgotten. Shame mixed with determination. Despair mixed with hope. She was breaking, but she refused to shatter completely. Not for herself, but for me. Vincent paused, his gaze distant. When you asked me for those leftovers, I saw those same eyes. My mother's eyes. And I thought, what if someone had given her a real chance back then? What if someone had seen past her circumstances to the capable woman underneath? Maybe things would have been easier for us. Elena wiped at her tears. I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything. Just keep being the person you are. Keep fighting for your daughter the way you have been. And maybe someday when you're in a position to help someone else, you'll remember this moment and pay it forward. I will, Elena promised. I swear I will. She left Vincent's office with a permanent job, a raise, and something even more valuable. The knowledge that someone had seen her worth when she had almost forgotten it herself. 3 months passed since Elena became a permanent employee at Chen Properties. With her first few paychecks, she managed to save enough for a security deposit on a small apartment. It wasn't in the best neighborhood and the building was old, but it was theirs. A place where she and Mia could close the door and have privacy. A place that wasn't a shelter bed surrounded by strangers. The day they moved in, Elena sat on the worn carpet of their empty living room and cried. Mia curled up next to her, not fully understanding but sensing the importance of the moment. We did it, baby, Elena whispered. We have a home again. At work, things continued to improve. Elena had become indispensable to the office operations. She managed schedules, coordinated projects, and handled difficult clients with a patience that impressed even Vincent. The whispers about her had mostly stopped. People had moved on to other gossip, and Elena's consistent performance had won over the skeptics. But Elena hadn't forgotten where she had come from. Every time she walked past that restaurant where she had met Vincent, she thought about the hundreds of other people still standing on street corners, still asking for help, still invisible to the world rushing past them. One evening, 6 months into her employment, Elena stayed late to finish organizing files for a major project. Everyone else had gone home except Vincent, who was working in his office as usual. Around 7, he emerged and found Elena still at her desk. You're here late, he observed. Just wanted to finish this, Elena said, gesturing at her computer. Tomorrow's meeting will go smoother if everything's ready. Vincent leaned against her doorframe. Can I ask you something? Of course. Are you happy? I mean, really happy. Not just grateful for the job, but genuinely satisfied with where things are. Elena considered the question carefully. I'm happier than I've been in years. Mia and I have an apartment. I can afford groceries without calculating every penny. She has new books, new clothes. I'm not afraid anymore of losing everything. She paused. But there's something missing. What's that? Purpose, Elena said. Don't get me wrong, I love this job and I'm grateful every single day. But I keep thinking about that night outside the restaurant. How many people did I ask for help before you said yes? 15, 20? All those people who looked right through me like I wasn't human. Vincent was quiet, listening. I want to do something about that, Elena continued. I don't know what exactly, but I can't forget what it felt like to be invisible. Vincent nodded slowly. I've been thinking about something similar. Come to... Oh, my office. I want to show you something. Elena followed him down the hall. Vincent's office was larger than hers, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. He pulled up a document on his computer and turned the screen toward her. I've been working on a proposal, he said. A program I'm calling Second Chance Initiative. The idea is to identify qualified candidates who are facing homelessness or extreme financial hardship and offer them trial positions within the company, similar to what I did with you. Elena read through the document, her excitement growing. The program outlined everything: how candidates would be identified, what kind of support they would receive, how the trial period would work, what training would be provided. This is incredible, Elena said. But why are you showing me? Because I need someone to help me run it. Someone who understands what these candidates are going through. Someone who can identify genuine need versus people trying to game the system. Someone who believes in second chances because she's lived it. Vincent looked at her intently. I want you to be the program coordinator. Elena stared at him. But I've only been here 6 months. I'm still learning the basics of this job. You've learned fast and you're ready for more responsibility. This program needs someone with your perspective. Catherine can take over most of your current duties. She's ready to step up to office manager. You would be creating something new, something that could change lives. What would it involve? Partnering with shelters and community organizations to find candidates. Reviewing applications. Conducting interviews. Matching people with appropriate positions in the company. Mentoring them through their trial period. Handling any issues that arise. Vincent pulled up another document. It would be a promotion. $55,000 a year, your own small team, eventually real decision-making authority. Elena felt dizzy. A year ago, she had been asking for leftovers. Now she was being offered the chance to help others escape that same situation. I don't want you to answer right now, Vincent said. Think about it. It's a big responsibility and it won't be easy. You'll face resistance from people who think we're being too soft or taking unnecessary risks. You'll have to make hard decisions about who gets a chance and who doesn't. Some people you help will succeed, others will fail, and that will hurt. Can I ask you something? Elena said. Anything. Why are you really doing this? I know you told me about your mother, but this is a big investment for the company. What's in it for you? Vincent smiled. Honestly, I'm rich, Elena. I have more money than I'll ever spend. My company is successful. I could coast for the rest of my career and be fine. But what's the point of all this wealth and success if I'm not using it to make things better? I've been thinking a lot about legacy lately. What do I want to leave behind? A bunch of buildings with my name on them? Or something that actually helps people? He walked to the window looking out at the city lights. When I was a kid, struggling with my mom, I used to think that if I ever made it big, I'd help others like us. But then I did make it big and I got busy. I got comfortable. I forgot that promise to my younger self until I met you that night outside the restaurant. You reminded me. Elena felt tears threatening again. She seemed to cry more now than she had when things were terrible. Maybe because she finally felt safe enough to let her emotions out. I'll do it, she said. I don't need time to think about it. This is what I want to do. Vincent turned back to her, smiling. You're sure? Completely. When do we start? Next month. That gives you time to transition your current responsibilities to Catherine, and for us to finalize the program details. We'll start small, maybe 2 or 3 candidates in the first round, and see how it goes. They spent the next hour discussing the program, throwing out ideas, identifying potential challenges. By the time Elena left the office that night, her head was spinning with possibilities. She couldn't wait to tell Mia. The following weeks were intense. Elena worked with Vincent to refine the program parameters. They reached out to homeless shelters, employment agencies, and community centers. The response was overwhelming. Within days, they had dozens of potential candidates. Elena's job was to screen applications and conduct initial interviews. She had decided to hold the interviews at community centers rather than the company office, so candidates wouldn't feel intimidated. She wanted to meet people where they were, not where she expected them to be. The first interview was with a man named Robert, a 53-year-old former accountant who had lost everything after a medical emergency, bankrupted him. He showed up in clothes that had been washed so many times they were nearly threadbare, but he was clean-shaven and carried a folder with his documents organized neatly. Elena saw herself in him immediately. The shame mixed with hope, the desperation trying to hide behind dignity. Tell me about your situation, Elena said gently. Robert's story poured out. A heart attack 3 years ago. Hospital bills that insurance didn't cover. Losing his job while recovering. Burning through savings. Losing his apartment. The shelter system. Hundreds of job applications rejected because of the gap in his employment history. I'm not lazy, Robert said, and Elena heard the defensive edge in his voice that she recognized from her own past. I want to work. I'm good at my job. I just need someone to give me a chance to prove it. I believe you, Elena said, and she did. She recommended Robert for the program. Vincent agreed, and Robert started the following week in the accounting department helping with bookkeeping and financial analysis. Watching him walk into the office that first day, nervous but determined, Elena felt like she was watching herself 6 months earlier. The second candidate was a young woman named Keisha, 24 years old, who had aged out of foster care and been struggling ever since. She was bright and articulate, but had never been taught basic professional skills. Elena arranged for her to start in the mailroom with additional training in computer skills. The third candidate was David, a military veteran dealing with PTSD who couldn't hold down traditional employment because of his anxiety around crowds and noise. Elena worked with Vincent to create a position for him doing data entry from a quiet office with flexible hours. Not every candidate worked out. One man lasted 3 days before disappearing, never to return. Another woman struggled with the structure of regular employment and left after 2 weeks. A third candidate was discovered stealing office supplies and had to be let go. Each failure hit Elena hard. She felt personally responsible, as if she had failed to see something she should have seen. Vincent reminded her that she couldn't save everyone, that some people weren't ready or willing to be helped. But that didn't make it easier. The successes, though, made it worthwhile. Robert thrived in the accounting department, his skills rusty but still solid. Within 3 months, he had found an affordable apartment and was talking about taking night classes to update his certifications. Keisha discovered she had a talent for organization and moved from the mailroom to become Elena's assistant in running the program. David's data entry work was impeccable, and his quiet reliability made him valuable to the team. 6 months into the Second Chance initiative, Vincent called a company-wide meeting. Elena stood nervously at the front of the conference room as Vincent introduced the program to the full staff. Some employees looked interested. Others seemed skeptical or resistant. I know some of you have concerns, Vincent said. You're worried about quality of work, about risks, about fairness to people who got their jobs through traditional means. Those are valid concerns. But I want you to meet someone who I think proves why this program matters. He gestured to Elena. A year ago, Elena was homeless. She was asking strangers for food outside a restaurant because she couldn't feed her daughter. Today, she's one of our most valuable employees. She's organized our office systems, improved our workflows, and is now running a program that's already helped 3 people restart their lives. None of that would have happened if I had judged her by her circumstances that night instead of seeing her potential. The room was silent. Elena saw surprise on many faces. Some people had known her story, but most hadn't. Elena's going to tell you more about the program, Vincent said, stepping aside. Elena took a deep breath and stepped forward. A year ago, she couldn't have done this. She would have been too ashamed, too afraid. But she had learned that her story wasn't something to hide. It was something that gave her perspective and purpose. A year ago, I was invisible, Elena began. People looked right through me. I was just another person asking for help, another problem they didn't want to deal with. But I was also a mother who loved her daughter, a worker who valued doing a good job, a person with skills and potential who just needed a chance. She talked about the program, the screening process, the support provided to candidates. She introduced Robert, Keisha, and David, letting them share their own stories. She acknowledged the failures and explained what they had learned from them. This program isn't charity, Elena concluded. It's smart business. We're finding talented people that everyone else overlooked. We're investing in them, training them, and in return, we get loyal employees who work hard because they appreciate the opportunity. Everyone wins. The response was mixed, but Elena hadn't expected unity.